Now to Algeria and continued unrest over President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's bid to seek re-election. Protests continued into the night on Sunday in various cities. This after Bouteflika's candidacy was formally submitted. And those protests have resumed today, as you can see with these pictures of students taking to the streets a little bit earlier. Bouteflika is currently in Switzerland for medical treatment. Indeed, his protracted health issues have angered many in Algeria who say he is simply not fit for a fifth term. In a bid to calm those concerns, his campaign chief has released a letter. In it, a promise that if re-elected, Bouteflika will call new elections after 1 year. Now, that's unlikely to appease protesters. Douglas Herbert, our international affairs commentator, is in the studio.
Good afternoon, James.
I mean, let's put it bluntly. How is it possible that a man who is so unwell, who's often seen in a wheelchair, who's frequently in Geneva for medical treatment, is seeking a fifth term?
Yeah, and the rumor mill in Algeria, they often grimly joke that he's dead. You know, the conspiracy theorists basically say, we have no proof he's actually still alive. He hasn't addressed his nation in years. These are all the facts of the matter. He has rarely been seen in public since he suffered this paralyzing stroke back in 2013. Now, you use the term unfit in your intro. Now, you're technically right, unfit, but some would say that's putting it mildly. And yet you do have this almost surreal disconnect between the physical state of the man and the fact that, as you said, he is running for, announced he's running for fifth presidency. Look, there's one part dignity in here, his own honor. He himself has said, nothing but death or disease will prevent me from running again. He sees himself as the man who restored stability, modicum of, stability to Algeria after years of civil unrest back in the 90s. He wants to, when he does exit, he doesn't want to do so because he was chased from power by some rowdy new upstart generation. He wants to do so with dignity on his own terms. But also, there's the reality of the system in Algeria. It's made up of all of these vying clans, both military and political clans and business lobbies, so those pillars, so to speak, economy and social and economic. And they basically are the ones a lot of people say are just pulling the strings. They're the ones really governing on a day-to-day basis. A small group, but they are the ones at the top of that echelon of power. And it's in their interest that he remains, because if he goes, they presumably could go too, and there could be consequences for them, i.e. perhaps jail sentences and prison terms, depending on who comes next. And I go back to that original point. He is seen, Bouteflika, by some people of perhaps an older generation as a synonym for stability. You know, anyone of a certain age in Algeria knows that back in the 90s there was not just civil unrest, but raging fights between the government and the Islamist forces at the time that killed 100,000 at least by a small count.
And that only decades after the War of Independence. Exactly. I mean, it's a country that's had huge instability.
And he's still seen by some as the man, as bad as he is. He may be on the point of death, as you say, but at least he brought stability to us. He deserves a dignified exit.
Right, and people remember him fondly for his role in independence and whatnot. Now, it's the protests that we're seeing. They're the biggest in generations. A lot of young people taking to the streets who don't remember all of that unrest
we were
from the 90s.
just talking about.
But there's a political maturity there. We were talking about this earlier. They're a politically mature group of...
Very mature. Well, first of all, they've steered very clearly, and you could say wisely, given the past precedents of violence. And, look, even if they're not old enough, James, to remember that civil unrest and the insurrections back in the 1990s, their parents have told them the stories. It's very fresh in the national memory and imagination, even if they physically didn't live through it. There's just a sense of weariness and fatigue, and you listen to the people our reporters have spoken to out there. Everyone basically says it's a humiliation. It's an insult to us. It's a slap in the face that they're still out there. And remember, Bouteflika, he did restore stability. There was a time when the oil prices were high. He also helped build a middle class. Economic and social progress. He's almost, you could say, shot himself in the foot by creating...
They're running out of... The money isn't there as
the money isn't there
right?
anymore, but he's created effectively this new generation of young, upwardly mobile, if you will, but just nowhere to go because the possibilities aren't there. The economy is now hemorrhaging again because the oil prices are down. At the end of the day, you have the new technologies. We've talked about this in the Arab Spring, but at the end of the day, internet, social media have played a big role bringing people together, helping coordinate these protests. It's a new generation that isn't going to go away. These protests I do not see just sputtering out, fizzling out in the next few days.
Douglas Herbert, thanks so much for that. And of course, one big protest being organised for Friday.
Next Friday.
Coming from the Wilaya, which are like I suppose, the districts of Algeria towards the capital city.
Could be the big one,
it's likely to build this week.
Absolutely.
Now, rescue workers in the United States